Hi, I'm Eric Voss, and today I'm going to be talking about this potential study that we're working on called Adverse Events of Special Interest within COVID-19 subjects. So today I'm just here as a representative of the Vaccine Evidence Working Group, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of many studies that the Vaccine Evidence Working Group is working on. Okay, let me see if I can actually switch the slides. But in order to talk about this study, I actually need to talk about some prior work that you may have heard about. So last year, OHDSI published the study, and you probably have heard people say it's Jintong's paper. But this paper was on characterizing background incidence rates of adverse events of special interest for COVID-19. And what this study was looking at is there are 15 pre-specified AESIs, or adverse events of special interest. And when new vaccines come out, this warrants focused evaluations of these AESIs. And this work is important because we wanted to understand what are the background rates of these ASIs. So taking a general population, if we can get some baseline information about how often these ASIs actually occur, then when we start to see adverse events with the vaccinated cohort, we can then start to compare, are there differences between the incidence of the ASIs in the vaccinated cohort versus just the general population. What I really like about this study is it kind of highlights one of the powers of the OHDSI network. And so I would say this study was done fairly quickly on a lot of different data sets. So there were 5 claims data sets, 8 EHRs, so 13 data sets total across 8 different countries. And so I think this is just a nice highlight of the power of our OHDSI network. The paper is also very important because we needed to generate this evidence about about this baseline information in order to be thinking about safety evaluation as the vaccines started to hit the market. I also like how the paper highlights that there is large variation among observed rates of ASIs by age and gender. And I think the paper does a nice job highlighting that you need to take into consideration age and gender when you're looking at these ASIs. So if you haven't read it, you should go out because it is a good read. But that's the prior study. So how is that different from what I'm talking about today? So this study is adverse events of special interest within COVID-19 subjects. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking the target population and we're going to swap out the general population and insert COVID-19 subjects. So we want to quantify the AESIs in subjects post-COVID-19 disease, and then we're going to look at the overall and age-specific and sex-specific groups. And it's relevant for similar reasons to the previous study in that we need to understand this baseline information as we continue to evaluate adverse events with the vaccine, because then it also serves as a comparator, okay, for people who get the vaccine versus those who had COVID. We can compare how often these adverse events actually are occurring. So if you're interested, we do have a fully specified protocol, which you can go and read. However, I will highlight a little bit of it right now. So this is a retrospective cohort study. Like I said, we're going to be swapping out the target cohort for these COVID-19 cohorts. Specifically, we're going to have 2 cohorts. One is first COVID-19 event, and this is defined by finding a positive test. And the second cohort is first COVID-19 event, and that's either with a positive test or a diagnosis. I need to give a shout out to the Phenotype Working Group, which actually evaluated and updated these phenotypes so that we could use them not only in this study, but in other studies. And it takes a current look at how we should be thinking about COVID-19 within our observational data sets. Switching over to outcomes, we are going to evaluate the same 15 previous AESIs that was in Jintong's paper. However, since that paper, you've probably heard a lot about thrombosis and thrombocytopenia, or TWT, and so that has become an adverse event of special interest, and so we're going to be adding that into this study as well. As I mentioned on the previous work, we've highlighted that age and sex subgroups are very important, so we will continue that. But we've also added some additional age groups, particularly in the pediatric space, as we start to get our children vaccinated. So that will also be important to know about. There are going to be 7 times at risks, all between 0 and 365 days, and they highlight different times of risk that have been seen in literature. So, for example, within 2 days of vaccination, within 14 days. So we'll be looking at that as well. And the outputs are counts, incidence rates, and proportions, incidence proportions of the outcomes. So one thing that I want to highlight that I'm very excited about this work is that not only are we going to have the data sources from the original work, but we want to pull in more data sources. We've had a couple data partners already raise their hand for this. But I'm very excited about pulling in the Eden data partners that were part of the COVID-19 rapid call for data. And most of those data partners have been finishing. And this may be one of the first kind of studies that they are able to participate in because they have their COVID-19 data and now they have their CDM so they can participate in a study. So if you're one of those COVID-19 data partners, you'll know you'll be getting a call from me. Okay, so what's the current status? The current status is we have our protocol, which is available online for you to read. We are working on testing the package right now. The package itself is going to be a mix of cohort diagnostics and incidence rates. So it's going to be one package for everything. And I'm hoping within the next week we can share instructions for how a data partner can run and execute that. And our goal is to collect our data by the end of December so that we can start January evaluating the information that we've gotten back. So if you saw your name or your organization's name on the prior slide, I'm most likely already know that I'm going to be contacting you directly. However, if you are interested in participating and you don't think that I'm going to be emailing you, please just reach out. I'd be happy to include other data partners who might be interested in this work as well. And that is it.